Hey gang, welcome back to another video here at Joe Daddy's Garage. This is Brooklyn Pony part 48. Now there's more than 48 videos. Some of them have multiple numbers added to them because they covered the same subject matter. So there's a lot more than 48. However, this one is 48. I want to point out, I now have Team Brooklyn Pony t-shirts available on Teespring. So if you're interested, there's links below the description box, and you can click on that, and there's a variety of shirts and apparel available. There's even the other Joe Daddy's Garage Mustang t-shirt. That's enough of that. Okay, in this video, I'm going to be working on installing the 3-point seat belts. Now, this is a little more complicated than putting in seat belts in a coupe, obviously, because there's no roof structure. All you have is the B-pillar for the front seats, and really nothing for the back seats. So I have to get creative. Now, I already have pictures that I can use as reference points for the front seat belts, and I'm going to go over the seatbelt company, the brand, all that sort of thing in just a minute. But I'm trying to figure out a way to build a structure that I can attach the high point for the rear seat belts. So I'm working on that as I go along, but I want to show you the process for at least getting the front pieces in, and from this particular company. I know that other manufacturers have their way of doing it, and this company, I like the way they're showing that it's put in, so I'm going to do it that way. And well, let's get started. Okay, so let me show you this first. The box has a sticker on it. It says seatbeltplanets.com. That is who makes the seatbelts. However, the box, the shipping, came from another company, which is Revology Cars, LLC. Now, that's the company that sells these, but I don't know if you can go straight to Seatbelt Planet to buy these or not. So what you get is this 3-point seatbelt kit. Now this one has the seatbelt, the retractor, and also a mount for your hip where you would attach. So that's one kit, and I believe that is for the rear. Here's another one that's by itself, is just a retractor. And then here are two more of these, which is again the rigid point, let's say rigid, that mounts to the transmission tunnel. You know, in this case, that would be for the, I believe those are for the front seat. Here is another one that has a shorter piece in it. So if you look at the comparison, it's a couple inches shorter. And we'll go into more into this later. Here's another retractor. Along with that, some bags of hardware, bolts, washers, plates. There seems to be about 6 bags of those, maybe, various configurations. And probably the most important part is for the front seats. There's 2 plates in there, and I want to show you these because they're a little bit unique. You know, it's got a rectangular shape, and it has a raised area like a flange on one side and recessed on the other. And we're going to talk about that a little bit as we go forward. But there's 2 of those, and I know those are for the front seat. These are going to be for the front seat as well because they're independent bags. And these would be for the rear because it already has the shorter arms. Okay, I'm not going to open up this one just yet, but I'm going to show you the part number if you're interested, if you can read that. And it is R3359-333104044. That's one of them. There's some other numbers on here. I don't know how relative they are. This one, which is the front. Let me see if this one reads better. These would be for the front. This says R3359-3331274. What's the difference? I don't know. But I'm just letting you know, 2 different part numbers. Again, I'm not going to open the back bags just yet because I don't want to deal with those at this point. And we're going to talk about, you know, the bag of hardware. It's got some angle brackets in there that'll get attached. There's, looks like 2 of those kits that are the same. Oh, I take that back. 4 of those kits that appear to be the same. Part number FHD1046-1. That's for those 2. Now these 2 are different, so maybe there is some different. R3359950001. What's the difference? I don't know. And then there's another bag, FHD1046-2. I think these, this looks like the kit for mounting the receiving end. That's what I'm assuming, because it looks like that's what it's showing in the pictures. Okay. Blah, 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 blah. A bunch of stuff, right? The important thing to know is there are different companies that make these kits. I know CJ Pony Parts sells one, and I've seen a video on how they mount the shoulder area on a convertible, and it's not, I mean, I'm sure it's efficient, but it's not the same as this company. So I'm going to show you the difference with this one. And since I'm standing here and I'm looking at the paperwork, I just want to point this out. Here is the number again for the 3-point rear seatbelts, Mustang 65 to 66, and hardware kit, as I mentioned. So definitely the 4044 is for the rear. Says so right here. All right, so there's some things that I want to talk about. You know, this kit that I was provided is a good kit. I'm sure there's, you know, no problem with it. The design looks like it's a proven design, and looking at pictures, which I will post in this sequence, you can see how Revology has built their car with the seatbelt already in mind. What I'm getting at is the original layout of these cars. There is a mount point right here, okay? And as I'll show you in the pictures, the Revology mount point is somewhere right about here. Now the reason for that is the seatbelt angle for whenever it's retracted and out of the way. Because you have your high point here, your retraction device is mounted here, and then the third point is here. Okay. There's really no difference in the function of the seatbelt whether it's mounted here or it's mounted here. The only difference is if you create an angle right here, and if somebody wanted to get in and out of the back seat of the car, that's kind of a trip hazard. By moving it back, it creates less of an angle. So, looking at the pictures, I can only assume that whenever Revology builds their cars, they have that in mind already. They relocate this plate further back, and then they continue with their build. This is kind of a new thing in a sense, because this was not a consideration at the beginning of the build. So I did not have, you know, an idea that this should be relocated. With that said, I'm going to relocate both of these on the inner rockers. I've looked at that, the other side. I've looked at pictures online, and I can show you pictures as well. And the plate that's in here is rectangular, and I can see the witness mark of where the welds are. So what I plan to do, and again, the only reason I want to do this is to make it similar to what Revology has and move that seatbelt aft for clearance. I plan to cut out a square around this plate, cut out another square back here, and swap these locations. Now, again, maybe that's not the best idea at this point, but it's the only way I can come up with to remedy that. And of course I know it'll be strong, it'll be welded in, good and solid, and I will try to, I know whenever everything is complete, I will spray as best I can. I will find an access point. If there is one, I don't know. But my only concern with all that is, again, the welds and stuff and moisture. Now, there's not much I can do about it. If there is a point where I can come in with a spray, I will do that. I may have to be creative with going through the hole and come up with a nozzle that has a turn on it that it can spray the backside through that hole. But again, I still have the issue with the square. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be a concern. This car is going to be tight. There's no reason it should be getting moisture in these areas, so I don't think it's going to be a concern at all. With that, I need to continue on and get these points welded in, and I'll show you that process. And then, of course, the mount point down here, and again, the pictures are available, and then relocate this. So that'll take care of the front seat. The bigger problem, and I don't see any way of making it work, is getting a 3-point setup on the back seat. I've looked it over, I've looked at other cars, I've looked for pictures and ideas. I don't see any way to make it work with a convertible top. So at this point, I'm going to nix the idea of putting in 3-point harnesses in the rear, and we'll have to go back to the idea of a 2-point harness and just run with that, because I just don't see anything that can make it practical because of issues with the seat and bracing and all that sort of stuff. So I can talk more about that later and show you the conflict, but at this point I need to work on getting all of this in place. So with the pictures that I have, the plate is going to go up here inside, and I have my own idea that I'm going to address that. This plate here is a 90-degree piece that gets welded to the floor, or to the inner rocker, and it'll get welded in solid, and then the retractor bolts to that. So that takes care of these two, and then the strap will come up between the trim panel that's inside the car. And then, of course, the third point, again, down here. So that's the plan. Hopefully I can make this all work out and make sense. Okay, so according to the pictures, again, this is going to protrude out of this hole. The problem is, and if you look on the outside here, is the shape, and I could do another angle, but the shape of the B-pillar structure, because it's got a kind of a curve area that comes up, subtle curve. And so based on the pictures that I've been given, bing, what I need to do is trim the edge of this to make it shorter. So I'm just going to kind of do an arbitrary pattern here, but if I set that up on the edge of that hole as close as I can to give you an idea, it looks like from their pictures it gets something along this line of a trim. Okay, hopefully you can see that okay. And then I'll show you on this side what I'm referring to as well, so that you can see. Now I may not take off that much, I just may start with grinding the corners off and see what happens. So the other thing that I need to do is the size of this protrusion is too big for this hole straight in. It's very close, but I think I'm going to have to enlarge this hole a little bit. The problem is I only have a very short distance between the edge of the hole, or the face of the hole, and the other part that's outside. So I may have to just use a rotary file and go around that perimeter a little bit and just open it up. So that's the plan. So again, as I've said, take the rotary file and just open that hole up a little bit. Now ideally you probably could enlarge the hole aft to make a little bit more room for the plate to fit, but I'm just making it bigger. Okay, so it sits in there. Now what I want to do is kind of do a test fit just to see how close I can get this into that space. So I'm going to use a magnet and guide it in carefully through that space. See if I can get it up in there. Well, there it is. We'll see how close. Yep. So maybe you can see how much of the hole is not coming through. So that's why you have to trim this down on that edge so that it'll fit. So let me pull that back out. Hopefully. The magnets want to hang in there. So there it is. But that's why you trim this down. Hopefully there's enough light that you can see. If I were to put this in so that the marked area is facing away, this is what you run into. As you can see how much material is, you know, it's like angled here, you know, so you have to eliminate material to get in there. I've trimmed it down so you can probably see I did follow the pattern that I kind of guessed at. I don't know if you can see much of it left, but it's still there. And now I'm going to try to fit it back into that opening. Might take a try or two, I don't know. And this is one of the bolts provided. See if I can get that started in there. So there, that's a nice snug fit. I don't know how well you can see that, but pretty nice fit for that. And now the idea is, if it makes sense, I'm going to drill some holes above and below that plate. But something else I want to do, just because, and I think it might make more sense, I don't know, I'm going to drill some holes on the back side as well. The reason I want to do that is, these holes or welds will probably be plenty to hold it in place, but I'm going to add some more welds coming from this side. Now, there will be a gap between the plate and this B-pillar structure, so it'll be more like, you know, a pile-up type of weld. So I'll weld to the plate and then fill the hole on the back side, and that'll at least give it a little more grip overall. But yeah, I think that's going to work out. And I can feel it wants to wiggle just a little bit, so I might have to enlarge that hole just a little bit more to match the shape of that flange, because it's kind of tapered. So I'll probably do that and then make those holes. Okay, I didn't do much beyond kind of angle the rotary file so that I could break the edge. You know, there may have been a burr on the back edge. I think that'll take care of it. Now what I want to do is mark where I want these holes. Now, of course, These holes that are here were probably designed for like a big rivet. I'm just guessing. I don't know why else you would just make those holes. So I'm going to kind of get it, I'll use this bolt as a reference. I want to get an idea of where it's going to sit. So I can kind of use the bolt, find that happy medium. And then I'll take just a Sharpie. And now these may not be the actual holes that I drill. I'm just using those as a reference point so that I know my safe zone, let's say. I don't want to drill a hole too high or too low and be left guessing. So at least that way I have an idea of where the holes are. Now I'm going to drill through. I'm going to come down a little bit from that top one. And I'm just going to come right on through the other side. This one I'm going to come up a little bit. Now the hole I want to use is probably going to be in a range of about 3/8. I'm going to step up one more size because that's not 3/8. I'm going to go to 3/8 though. I want a lot of weld holding this together. So. Okay. Now that I've drilled the holes, I'm going to be left with a little bit of a burr on the inside. And normally I would use a deburring tool that I have, but I don't know where it's at. So I'm going to do a backup to a file. And all I want to do is come into that edge of that hole and knock off that burr that's on the edge, on the back side. The reason for that is I want that plate to fit flush, so I don't want anything in the way. I'm going to skip this part because it's boring. So I have the piece back in the hole, and I want to mark the weld areas. The reason I want to do that is I want to take a sanding disc and bare off the coating, whatever is on this plate, so that I have good, weld contact. I also will sand these holes just a little bit on the outside and get it prepped to weld this in. Alright, so I want to get this back in place. Now, I want to make sure this doesn't move, right? So here's what I plan to do. I'm taking one of the bolts from the kit, a couple of big wide washers that came in the kit. I'm going to thread that on, or thread that in, I should say. And then I'm going to take 2 short sockets, put one on either side, and tighten those up. And that way it'll hold it tight against the inside of the sheet metal. Okay, here's a different angle so you can see what I'm talking about. That's going to hold that in a good position, and I can put a couple of tack welds, then remove this, and then do a full perimeter weld. Now, as I've said, I'm also going to weld it from the back side, and it'll really be like a column of weld that's going to attach it to this inner piece, or the outer piece, let's say. So I'm going to build that out as well. And it may not be necessary, but it's just how I'm doing it. Now on this side, I will sand these down somewhat, but I don't want to make them smooth. I want to leave some of the weld material because there will be a panel covering this, so you won't see that. But I'd rather leave more weld than just to have it flush with the perimeter of the hole. So I'm just going to sand that down a little bit. But on the outside, I want to make that look more flush. You know, try to make it blend in so you don't really notice the welds at all. But more on that later. Not much to show you beside me sanding away. Okay, this is the less than fun part. What I have found is I could see the weld through the metal here. So there's a rectangular piece for this mount, and I could take a light and shine it across and see where the welds were. So that gives me a pretty good idea of that location. The plan is I'm going to cut a square or rectangle slightly bigger than that location, remove that, place it back here, and trace out the hole, cut that hole out, move that piece here, put this piece there. Again, I'm not saying you have to do this. I'm only doing this because it matches the design that I saw on the other cars. So at this point, the dimension for that rectangle is about, well, 2.5 inches. And the width looks like 1.25 inches. So again, I'm going to come up here and draw a line. Let me get some parameters so I know where I'm at. I think I'm going to come about 1/2 inch past each end. Yep. Nope. This one. So basically, that's what I'm going to cut out. Okay, so you can see both the openings. There's the block that's on the back side, and this is going to fit really well in this opening. This one is going to have a little less, won't be as tight, let's say. So what I've done is, you can see, maybe you can see, I put a flange on the inside, and I've drilled 2 holes here. So basically I'm going to install 2 plates inside. It's kind of hard to show you with my hand in the way, but 2 plates on the inside, and that'll act as a filler to support the weld. So whenever this plate is in place, it'll keep it from falling in and help have a backing for the weld. So the plan now is to get this other plate in and start welding this back together. I will say, I really like these vice grips. I picked these up at Tractor Supply. Very handy. Okay, I'm using 30 thousandths wire, and I just want to get this welded in. So I'm going to get some tacks on it. I think I just kicked the breaker. One down, one to go. All right, that's not going anywhere. Now, I will blend those down. More than likely, I will use the diamond disc and work it down, you know, smooth it up. After that, that's pretty much it for relocating that mount point. Now that this is welded in, obviously I still have to blend it down, but there's one more piece I need to attach. This kit comes with several bags that have washers and bolts and these angle brackets. And if you look at the angle bracket, they're two different, the legs are two different lengths. In the pictures that I have, and I'll show you those, you can see that there is a nut welded onto the long leg of the angle bracket. And you can also see how it is placed on the vehicle. So what I did is I bolted or put a bolt through the hole, put the nut on, tacked it, removed the bolt, and then welded around the edge of the bolt or the nut. So that gave it a rigid mount. Now the measurement that they show in the picture is 1.5 inches from the back edge of this brace to the center line of this bracket, and the bolt, or the nut I should say, faces to the outside of the vehicle. So at this point I don't have a solid measurement as to whether that should be more inboard or outboard, so I'm going to have to go with my gut and just kind of give it a little bit of a gap and figure that there needs to be enough space for the bolt to go through and stick out the back side of the nut. So I could, I guess, just for a test, thread this bolt back in and just see where it, if it hits anything. Yeah. And now I also know that with the other pieces attached, the bolt will eventually or essentially become shorter. So somewhere in that range is probably where it needs to be, and that's what I'm going to do. Now I should look also at the assembly, because I can't assume that it's going to just fit. So it looks like this may need to actually go back a little bit to make room for the retractor. So what I could do, I guess, is bolt the retractor to the bracket to give me an even better look. This may be a better way to do it than to trust somebody's pictures. So, yeah. If that's the case, then I would have been all messed up. So double check everything so that you aren't taking stuff back apart like I would have been. So let me relocate that line. Yep. All right. Note to self. That's not going anywhere. Okay, just for giggles, I'm going to put this on. I'm not going to make anything tight. I'm just trying to get it in place. I'll point out that the upper mount at the shoulder has a bolt already in it. So of course you have to get the cover off. Now it looks like, again, I can't say how long the bolt has to be, but I can tell you it's already hitting the inside. So that bolt may need some trimming. I don't know for sure. I can look at it and tell you it's got a bit, a little over 1/8 of an inch of a post sticking out. So just something to think about whenever you're trying to put it together. And then this lower section, and of course this isn't retracted. This has a retainer on it right now, keeping it from pulling in. But just to have it in location, see if I can make this move up. Yeah, look at that. That's kind of nice, huh? So that works out pretty well. If you were getting in the vehicle, you'd have a hard time, you can hook your foot on it, but more than likely you're going to step right over it. So that's cool. Now the other thing that I want to talk about briefly is the mounts. These are pretty cool. They'll bend and kind of hold a shape. And of course it comes with a bunch of washers and stuff. So the only thing I'm confused by is the way this is arranged. Because it has the button. If you were to look at the back of this, where it's very flat, it has a flat side and then a recessed area. Well, your mind is going to say bolt it with the flat side down, right? So if you did that, that puts the release button on the inside. So your seatbelt would be covering that up. Obviously it doesn't work that way. It's going to have to go around the opposite and put the side like this facing towards the body. So, you know, these are probably meant to be kind of a universal fit, I guess. I don't know. And it's not that going to be that big a deal. I'm just pointing that out because of the design. So, you know, if you had that coming up around your seat, then the trigger or release would be on the outside of the belt, which is what you want. Hopefully, that all works out. It looks like it should, but I'm not going to worry about getting all this in place just yet. I just want to make sure this worked out. Now, there's a few other things I want to talk about before I move on, but I like this setup. I really do. It's going to be, looks like it should be fairly well concealed, I hope, behind the trim panel. And I have the trim panels, but they're in the same shape as the original car. So the pictures that I saw online, that again I can show you, it shows the belt, this part of the belt coming up through this area right here. So I don't know if they're using different panels or if they modify this panel. I don't know, but these are pretty rough. Okay, I'm going to talk about one more thing and then I'm probably going to wrap this up. Oh, this is, well, we'll call this a one more thing, right? If you remember this piece, this is the original brace that goes right here. Okay? If you look down here at the bottom, that is a seatbelt mount. Now these are scrap. I'm going to have to get, you know, new stuff, but that gives you at least, that's why I keep a hold of this stuff, that gives you a location point for the seatbelt. Let me show you why I don't think it's going to work, for a variety of reasons, to have shoulder harness type belts in the back of this vehicle. What I want to do is put in what is going to be as close as I can get to for a back seat at this point. This is the back seat out of the Stray Pony, the 65 Mustang that I have. And it will fit between the sides. I can't get it to hook onto the hooks that are back here. It just doesn't want to reach, and I imagine I could force it if I wanted to, but the difficulty is if you try to put in these retractors, there's nowhere to go on the sides. So let me show you what I'm talking about. This is hidden by this panel. I don't have the lower section of the seat. Actually, I do have it. It's in the car, the other car. But you can imagine the height of the seat being here, and then this panel fitting over this, right? Well, for this retractor, it's designed to be hidden. It's not meant to be out and exposed. It's not a pretty item. So you can't put it back here and try to have the other mount points because it just won't work. So I don't know, you know, if you put it here, it's going to stick out into the seat area, and I don't think that's going to look good. The other thing is the shoulder mount point, and I'll show you that in just a second, my concern. But, you know, ultimately, you know, that would be exposed, put it down there. I don't know. It just doesn't feel good, you know? You know, I might be looking at this all wrong. I'm thinking of this design where you have the retractor down low, your pivot point up here at the shoulder, and then the other point mounted to the inner rocker panel. I'm looking at this kit, and again, there's no instructions with this. And I realize now that if I look at this, the retractor, it doesn't have the third point. It doesn't have the slide, this point up here. Sorry, I keep hitting things. It doesn't have this third point up high. It just has a mount point for the retractor and this other end. So now that I look at it, and I'll show you from a different angle in a second, I think the retractor is supposed to go up here behind the seat, and then this point will bolt to the original location, and then this point will attach like that. You know, maybe this will work, because I was concerned. I was really concerned. So let me show you from another angle. My thought prior to this was to build a brace assembly, something out of square tubing, roll bar stuff, something that I could mount and weld it to the floor, weld it to the back of the seat assembly. But now that I'm looking at this from a different perspective, because my concern is all of this equipment. You know, you've got the bows for the top, maybe some trim, of course the top collapsing down inside. But if I were to attach the retractor to this structure, now the top section where the seat attaches, that's pretty flimsy overall. You're not going to gain much from that. But this triangulated piece down here, that's pretty strong. There's a double flange right here, and whether I would use, I guess I could use that bracket. Maybe I could turn it around, weld it to this, and then go through all of this together with the bolt through the base of this retractor. And that way, it's behind the seat. You really wouldn't see it, and it comes over the top. Of course, I could bring it out as far, I guess, as till the bow's clear. The hard part with this, again, is not having, you know, the top. You don't know how much material is going to be in the way. So I'm going to have to look at this a little bit harder. The pictures, I haven't found any pictures online showing this at all. So this is kind of speculating. I can't go too low because the bow gets in the way, and you want to keep it up high on the seat. So I may have to come up even into this area. I don't know. We'll have to play with this some more. But there may be an answer to this. Maybe. One other thing I need to come up with is the mount point that'll go inside of that brace. So I don't know if the company that sells these seatbelts has those individually, that I can just get them. I don't know, but that is something that'll have to be addressed. Alright, that's going to be the end of this video. I think this is going to work great. At first I was hesitant about the idea of moving that mount location, but it makes perfect sense. You want to have it back and out of the way. I don't see any issues with it. This is not going to be exposed to the weather. I looked inside of this thing. It is completely sealed. I don't see any way water could get in there, and if it did, it would take another 50 plus years for it to have any issues. So I'm all good with this. If there is a way that I can get in there and spray some sort of protectant, I will, but I don't see it being a concern at all. So this is pretty cool. I like it. Now the rear, obviously I'm going to have to do a little more homework and see what I can come up with. If anybody has any input, by all means share it. We need to know this stuff so that we can move forward with these kind of add-ons. But that'll be the end of this video. I want to thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for using Amazon to buy products through my page. Thank you for buying t-shirts. I see they're selling now. I'm getting more and more volume out of that, so that's fantastic. And also, those that have become patrons, I want to thank you very much for that. All of that helps with keeping this channel up and going, and I just can't thank you enough. So I'll point out that if you haven't seen it yet, on the other channel, my Joe Daddy's Workshop channel, I posted a video riding around and acting a little foolish on one of those go-kart dune buggy things with a roll cage on it. If you haven't seen it yet, I suggest you go watch that video because I crashed it. I rolled that thing over, not like multiple times, but I rolled it up all the way onto the top of the vehicle, and I came real close probably to breaking my neck, honestly, and I'm very lucky that that didn't happen. Otherwise you wouldn't be seeing this video. But if you just want to be entertained and a little shocked, go look at that other video. It's on there, and you know, it's just we all need to be careful with what we're doing and be safe. So I made a poor decision, and thankfully I'm up and moving around, not really feeling any pain, but anyway. That's going to be it. So again, thanks for watching, and until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya. Has a sticker on it from seatbeltplanet.com. At this point, I can tack the two holes, or tack, you know, do tack welds. If it makes sense. And if you look at the picture, it shows it that the retractor or the plate. I have one more thing that I need to do to, and then the third point mounted to the inner torque box or inner frame rail. Sorry. You know, I might be looking at this all wrong. Now is the time, if you want to have, you know, some fun, put some ball bearings inside of the rocker panel, and that way every time they accelerate, it shoots to the back and you hear a clunk clunk. It goes to the front when you hit the brakes, clunk clunk. Just saying, I'm not going to do that.